From backyard Barbies to volunteer halls, you can hear that spirit in the weekend calls. Doesn't take gold, just a soul that cares. They're doing good stuff everywhere.
One of the great bonuses of that song is we get Rob singing along every week.
I just love that song.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Because it makes you feel good, and we need to feel good because we're going to
well, James Brown felt good. I knew that he would.
I don't think James ever felt as good as that song has made me feel.
Well, there you go. Hey, we're going off to Morven in Queensland, not Malvern, Morven, Morven, where we find someone who has been on Chewing the Fat, but I don't think has been on Two Blokes Chatting radio show before. Her name is Annabelle Brayley. Hello, Annabelle. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks, Neil. How are you?
Doing very well indeed. Thanks for joining us on Doing Good Stuff. Hey, you're doing good stuff. Tell us a bit about the memorial.
Oh, well, we're doing exciting stuff up here. Neil, we have the only memorial in Australia dedicated solely to all of the Australian women who nursed in Vietnam. And we're just about to, well, we're raising money for a third stage of that. The first stage was a permanent photographic exhibition, and then in the second stage last year we opened honour boards, which names all the nurses who went to Vietnam. With the civilian nurses, it names all the names that we have been able to verify. And so our next stage is to create this monument it's 5 life-size sculptures, figures that will illustrate what the nurses were actually doing in Vietnam. But one of the really exciting things about the project, apart from that itself, is the way it's actually engaged community in this, because just listening to that song you played, you know, volunteering is such a lovely thing to do, and I have to say, from my part, all of this has enhanced my life in ways I could never have imagined, and I can only encourage people to do that, and clearly you guys encourage people to do that when you play that song.
Yeah, I think it's volunteering is something that when you grow up in a rural community, it's what family does to keep community together, and I'm very saddened that maybe it's not something that just happens naturally these days. I think a lot of people don't, and they're not born into volunteering as a normal. Some still go into it, and it's a very important part, but it's people like you and this story that engage with community in lots of different ways to make people understand that the joy of volunteering is something that will enhance lives rather than be a time constraint as many people think it is.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I also think whether it's volunteering or even whether it's finding someone to fill a role, volunteer or paid otherwise, particularly in smaller communities where there are less people, is that sometimes, and I think this has always been so, but I think it's more so because of what you just said, that it's not so much the norm, that sometimes it's just about actually asking people and engaging in them and saying, will you come and help me with this? Because with this project, for instance, last year when we decided we were going to have and I use very raw we, I'm very fortunate that a lot of this stuff is that I'm just able to say, I think we should do this, and, you know, we're able to do it. But that is about engaging people in the community to help. And I'm not much of a gardener, really, but I wanted these honour boards to be in the garden. So one of the young women in the district on one of the farms who is a gardener, I said to her, how would you feel about being able to create 3 garden beds? You could do what you like. And so she's got on board with it, you know, and I just think sometimes we, in general, all across the country, maybe instead of, you know, feeling that not enough people do volunteer now, that we actually have to rethink the way we engage them in volunteering and actually ask them to do things. Because I think there's a lot of young people who actually are happy to be involved, but they don't have that kind of role modelling, as you said, so they actually don't know how to.
I think the other thing too, second blatant plug for the morning, my A to Z of Regional Footy Clubs podcast. I'm talking to a lot of representatives of footy clubs in various parts of Australia. And one of the things that we've talked about in a couple of the episodes is, well, Davo's been the one who's been marking the lines for the last 42 years. I can't go and get Davo. I can't take over from Davo because that's what Davo does, and Davo will pass it down to his son or daughter when the time is right. It's sort of almost like an exclusivity thing that you've really got to open the door and say, hey, how about you have a crack at doing this? Or how about you come along and help us with this thing? If you don't give them that opening, then I think it could almost be intimidating.
I think that's absolutely true, and I think the same thing is true. It's a bit like succession planning, any of these roles, that, sometimes people in organisations, and again, this often happens in small communities, you hear them say, look, I'll have to be the secretary again because nobody else wants to do it. And I think, no, actually, let's find somebody who might want to do it, who actually has the skills, but may not, just as you said, may not feel that they can, encroach on that space. Let's engage them and support them into roles. I think that's the other thing, especially, being a secretary of anything is a huge role. I don't ever put my hand up. It's a lot of work.
Very few do. I think they're the ones who are away that night.
A lot of other things that you can do. You don't have to be the secretary, but we can all help in different ways. And I think you're absolutely right. We need to rethink the way we engage other people in what we're doing, and we need to give them an opportunity to be involved in whatever way they can be involved. And to go back to this current project of ours, this has become a bit more of a, when it first started, it was like a local community thing. But because of what it is, because it's about the Vietnam nurses and because it is the only memorial of its kind, it has actually, it is, just starting to attract attention in a much broader community. And we hope that will, that'll increase exponentially with this project because we do need to raise a lot of money. But I think also that it's not just about this is something in this community of Malvern in southwest Queensland. This is actually a really important monument in the whole community of Australia.
Yep.
Because these women were pretty much invisible, like a lot of nurses and other women have been in the past, and people, not just nurses. There's if I live long enough, there are a whole lot of other people who went to Vietnam who need to be recognised as well. But at the moment, the focus is on the nurses because so many people weren't even aware that there were nurses in Vietnam.
Annabelle, on that exact theme, we know that women just want to help. With your research on this, what did you find? Was there a consistency in what was driving these women to, their motivations to help, but putting themselves, I imagine, in serious harm to do it? Did you find a consistency about the character of them?
Look, I think the consistent thread was in the 60s when this was happening. I was actually in high school, so I'm relating, because I didn't know about the nurses, but relating to women of that similar age at that time and to society at that time, I think it was probably a certain, loyalty to country. So, Australia went to war, whether they should or shouldn't have is completely aside from that. They were asked to go, and they said, yes, we will. And I think that very few of them, so there were army nurses there were 43 army nurses who were based at the 1st Australian Field Hospital at Bung Tau between 1967 and 1972. There were, so far we've verified just over 150 civilian nurses who went with the civilian surgical teams, which were the Australian government was asked by the South Vietnamese government would they send civilian teams under the CETO agreement, which is the Southeast Asian Treaty Organisation. So under that treaty agreement, Australia and a number of other countries sent civilian teams, which included doctors, nurses, radiologists, administrators, etc., to Vietnam to support the local provincial hospitals. And then there were the RAAF nurses. There were 104 RAAF nurses based at Butterworth who flew medevacs into Vietnam, picking up wounded Australians, taking them back to Butterworth, and then bringing them back to Australia ultimately. The first of them went in 1965, and there were RAAF nurses involved until 1972. 32 of those RAAF nurses, were actually seconded to USAF, which is the United States Air Force, for 60-day rotations, and they actually flew with the 903 aero evacuations. That's not the correct name. AES. It's the aero evacuation squadron. And they were flying with the Americans from Clark Airfield in the Philippines, coming down through Vietnam, picking up wounded Americans and Koreans, and evacuating them back out of the country. And one of them actually flew with the 57th, and she flew Americans back to America. These are Australian nurses. And, nobody knew any of this. And so that's the reason why I think this is not just a little project in Morven in Queensland. This is actually an Australia-wide project, and it's why we would love anybody who's interested in this to, get involved with this project and help us complete this monument, because it's really, really important for the nurses, but it's also really, really important for Australian social history and history.
Annabelle, we are desperately short on time, so thank you for telling us all that. Where can people find out more?
Write to Vietnam Nurses Memorial at gmail.com.
Okay, thank you, Vietnam Nurses Memorial at gmail.com. Thanks for being part of it, and thanks for doing good things.
Thank you so much, Neil and Rob. Lovely to chat to you.
Good on you, Annabelle. Bye for now.